All right, everybody, 5-minute version of my review. And then if you want to watch the whole thing, you can watch it next. But I've had this truck for a year. I've driven it 16,000 miles. I've driven it on freeways. I've driven it in traffic, in and out of DC. I've driven it out on some trails around here in Virginia, driven on dirt roads through the twisty turnies. It's awesome. So I wanted to go over the 6 pros. Drivetrain is amazing. The power out of this twin turbo engine is awesome. I love that it's a 6-cylinder. The 10-speed transmission is great. All the different modes you have, the transfer case, the locking differentials, it's awesome. Suspension, phenomenal. I love the live valve shocks. It handles everything on the regular roads great. And then you've also got these big old sidewalls which help absorb some stuff too. But it's tuned really well to do great off-road and on-road. The looks, I mean, it's a Ranger Raptor. If you're watching this video, you probably like the way they look, so I don't need to tell you. But I like how it's aggressive. It has all these little vent things that are actually functional, and they're not just for looks, so that's pretty awesome. Reliability, I've had this thing for 16,000 miles. I've had 0 issues with it, other than like the dome light not working when I first bought the truck, but that was just because they forgot to plug it in at the factory. They fixed it. It has worked ever since. I've just done oil changes and tire rotations, nothing else, and I've had no issues, no lights coming on, no overheating or anything like that. Capability and comfort, I've already talked about that. It does great on-road and off-road. And then there's a tune that keeps a 3-year, 36,000 mile warranty through Ford Performance on this. And I got it and I love it. I got it put on at the 10,000 mile mark. So I put 6,000 miles on it with the tune, and it still drives great in the city. If you're just driving normally, you don't even notice it really has the tune, other than it shifts a little better. But when you get on it, it's awesome. Cons. Mileage in this thing, not very good. I get about 14, but I also have a whole bunch of stuff on and in the bed. Maybe without that stuff, if I didn't have the auto start stop eliminator, I might get 16. But I have never averaged more than like 20 or 21 on a highway, going pretty slow and boring. And then overall, like I said, my average over 16,000 miles is 14.4 miles per the gallon. Load box reinforcement requirements. So any vehicle built before October, there's an issue with the bed where if you put stuff over the top and it's heavy, you could actually end up bending the bed. So you got to put some reinforcement things in there, but they fixed that. So any of these trucks built after October of 24 already has those installed. There's limited undercarriage protection. It has plastic oil pan and transmission pan, and no protection for the transmission or the gas tank or the rear differential. But you know, there's plenty of protection for the engine oil pan and the transfer case and the front differential. The stereo is just kind of underwhelming. I did a whole other video on that, but just want to note it. That's something that if you're okay with stock stereos, it's fine. But for me, I want it a little bit better. There's no ventilated or cooled seats in the front and no heated seats in the back. And there's also no air conditioner ventilation in the back, other than pointing your middle vents back to the back seat. And then there's no split seat in the back. So if you want to bring the back down or the seat up, you have to do the entire thing. So if you have a car seat in there, you're not going to be able to open one side or the other. Not the end of the world, but it's nice. All my other trucks have had that. The upgrades I've done, I put sound deadener in the doors and up on the top. I replaced all the speakers, all the tweeters. I put a powered sub, and I added a inline amplifier for all the door speakers. And that made a huge difference, along with the sound deadening. So that was great. I put the load box reinforcement brackets in, and I've had 0 issues with it since then. I did the auto start stop eliminator, which to me was a hands down must do. I know you can set it up to where you just put the R button and it turns it off for you, but that requires some sort of intervention every time you get in the car. I wanted to be able to get in, drive, and have it not start and stop. I put a tonneau cover and a bed rack on, so that's my upgrade that I really like about it. Exterior lights. I did ditch lights. I've done a 32-inch off-road light behind the grille in the front. I've got the marker lights up there, and I upgraded the fog lights. So I put the Signature Lux media box in to eliminate the syncing issue that I was having with my phone to the Sync 4 system. It was not passing audio sometimes. That thing put it in there. Now I can watch YouTube on it. I can watch Netflix, and I have had 0 audio syncing issues. And then I installed a dash cam. I hit all the wires, so I did a video on that as well. Overall, this truck is awesome. I've had 0 issues with it. It's been reliable. Oil changes, tire rotations, that's it. Really great truck. I did look at the TRD Pro, I did look at the ZR2, and I went with this one, and I don't regret it at all. There's not another vehicle out there that I would want instead of that. There's the short version. If you're looking at a Ranger Raptor, just get it. If you want more details on everything I just talked about, you can watch the next 20 or 30 minutes, but that's the bottom line up front. Cheers. Hey everybody, welcome back. It's been a while since I've done a review video on my truck, but I've had it for a year now and I put 16,000 miles on it. So I wanted to go over, I think I wrote down like the 6 best things about it, the 6 things that I wish were different about it, and then the 6 upgrades, the 6 top upgrades that I did to it. So bottom line up front is I've had this thing for a year. It's been my daily driver. I've taken it off-road. I've taken it to and from DC. I drive it to work every day. I go to the grocery store. There's some dirt roads around here. There's a lot of asphalt. I've driven it on the twisty turnies and the back roads. It's pretty awesome on all of them. I do miss my M3 when I'm on those little sporty roads, but this thing's still really fun if you put it in sport mode. It does the rev matching on down, like when you're slowing down, it'll keep the RPMs up. It sounds cool. I don't want to say it helps with braking, but it helps you come out of corners and stuff. You're up into the revs. So we'll just get into it. The pros after a year of driving it. The drivetrain in general. The twin turbo 6-speed or 6-cylinder with a 10-speed. The transfer case. The front and rear differentials. Everything locks out. It's awesome. I've had 0 issues with it so far. I really enjoy it. There is a concern about, or I hear a lot of people say there's concern about the cam phasers. From what I understand, it doesn't ruin anything. It just doesn't perform as well when your cam phasers go out. And I think I might have that issue, but the car still runs perfectly, so I'm not worried about taking it in. If they're just going to replace it with the exact same cam phasers, that might fail again. I know the 3.5 had issues with cam phasers, but I don't know enough about it to really go into detail on it. But that's the only thing I've heard people complain about in these vehicles. And to be honest, even if I do have the issue, I hear some ticking when I start it up, but it's completely gone within a couple seconds and the truck still drives fantastic. Suspension, the live valve shocks in this thing are so good. Driving on the freeway, super comfortable. Driving off-road, super comfortable. In the dirt roads, it's great. You know, going up and down on like rocky terrain, you can go faster than you would like in a Tacoma or a Jeep. Those are a lot more jarring. This does a lot better job absorbing a lot of it and just keeping traction down when you're going a little faster. I love it. I think the ride height is perfect. I know a lot of people level it, lift it a little bit, put bigger tires on it. I think that all looks awesome, but this thing is so well put together. I haven't messed with any of that. I've spent a lot of money on other stuff like the rack on the back, the lights, the stereo, but I haven't done anything to suspension yet because I don't want to mess with the geometry that it came from the factory with. I know there's people out there putting portals on these, which is freaking awesome. Changing the upper control arm, replacing the lower control arm, doing all this work, which if you have the money for it and you really know what you're doing, you can make this thing look amazing and be even more capable than it already is. But I love it the way it is. So like I said, I haven't messed with it in that sense, but it does ride extremely well. Driving to and from work in traffic, it does really well. The adaptive cruise control is really awesome in traffic. And then when you do get off-road, it handles that extremely well too. So very well put together. The looks, I mean, to me, I bought this thing because I love the way it looks and I love the drivetrain. It's aggressive. It's the baby Raptor here in the States. We just got it last year. So I think I was one of the first on the East Coast to get one. I just got really lucky. And I haven't seen very many of them around here in Virginia. I know there's 1 or 2 in the area, but I've only seen like 2 in the wild in the last year. So I just think it's pretty neat to have one of them. I love the colors. And they're adding some more colors for the 2025s, but it's just a good looking truck. The flares are cool, everything's functional. These vents actually do pass some air. It's not a lot of air, but stuff is all functional on it. Not too much just for looks. I mean, just the bed coming out a little bit more, the big old wheels and tires, the beadlock capable wheels. They are not beadlock wheels. You have to buy extra rim set for or rings for it, but they look neat. The KO3 tires I really like a lot. I know a lot of people that prefer the KO2s. I've had both. I've had some other branded off-road tires. I think these KO3s, when I do get new tires, I will probably replace them with the exact same thing. So that's just my preference. They're a little bit on the expensive side, but BF Goodwrench has been making really good off-terrain tires for a long time. Reliability. So I have done nothing other than oil changes. That's it. So I mean, get the tires rotated, do an oil change. I have not had anything break down on me. I have not had it overheat. I've had no issues with like engine lights or warnings or anything like that. No like overheating transmission or transfer case or anything. Everything has worked just the way it's supposed to from the very beginning. When I did buy it, the dome light didn't work, but it was just not hooked up correctly from the factory. So they took the headliner down and fixed that for me. That was good to go. The upholstery on the driver's seat, I did a video on that. It was a little bit loose, but to be honest, I've had it for a year now. It has not gotten any worse. It doesn't bother me anymore. I don't even notice it. So I really like the reliability of the truck. It is a twin turbocharged engine, and I did do the Ford Performance Tune. So, you know, it's putting out a little bit more power, but they did a good job keeping that tune pretty, I don't want to say mundane because it does add a fair amount, but it's not like you're doing anything crazy to the vehicle. So it's still handling it all extremely well. It gives you a lot more power. It is so much fun to drive, and I don't worry about stepping on it and having it rev up. That was something to get used to coming from Tacomas and Jeeps in the truck world, where over 3,500 RPM, you're kind of like, ooh, this is kind of revving high. And this thing, it is thrilled to get up to 5,000, 5,500, 6,000 RPM. It just keeps going, and it shifts so well with that 10-speed transmission. And that's another great thing about the Ford Performance Tune, is it also changes the shifting points on the transmission. And that was one of the first things I noticed. The power comes on over a couple weeks, couple hundred miles. The shift points were instantaneous. So I really like that as well. Capability and comfort on and off the trails, on the roads. I've already talked about that a little bit. It's great all around. I have not had a single vehicle that did everything well until I got this. I've had M3s, I've had little sport hatches, I had the Focus RS, the Focus ST, I've had a Jeep Gladiator, I've had a couple of Tacomas, I've had a couple Chevy Sonomas and Chevy S10s. This is the first Ford Ranger I've ever actually had, but I've had other Ford cars. I had a Ford Explorer ST. So, and I'm not trying to name all these cars. I go through them a lot. It drives my wife crazy. But I will say, every single one of those cars I had, within a year, I was looking at what I'm getting next. With this one, I say, what am I going to do to it next? At no point have I thought, hey, I should trade this in on something else. It's, what can I do to make this thing even more fun? So if you're like me and you're always going through cars or trucks or vehicles in general, this one has got me pretty happy for now. The only thing that I would trade this thing for is if they made a Ford Ranger Raptor R, kind of like they made a Raptor R of the big brother. If they put the 3.5 or somehow shoehorn a Coyote engine in this thing, I will trade this in a heartbeat for that, as long as it has the same suspension and the same setup inside. That would be cool. But nobody else is making a vehicle that I want more than this right now. That, not saying that's not going to change. Maybe the Chevy ZR2 is going to put like, I don't know. I don't know what they would do, but I will keep my eyes open. I am not a Ford loyalist by any means. I've always loved the Raptor line, but this is just, you know, I don't want to say my dream car. If I had $1 million, I'd probably go buy something else. But for what this is, for, you know, $60,000, this thing is amazing. I love it. Talked about the tune a little bit. If you get the Ford Performance Tune, it comes with a 3-year, 36,000 mile warranty. I did it. That is from the day you buy the vehicle, not the day you put the tune on it. So I put the tune on at the 10,000 mile mark. So I've driven it 6,000 miles with the tune. Still does fantastic in traffic. It does fine going to and from work, driving the kids to school. It just makes it that much more fun when you really do get on it. If you're just going to drive normal, like you did before you got the tune, you won't even notice you had the tune, other than maybe it shifts a little bit better. But when you get on it, you can absolutely feel the difference. And I've done a lot of videos already on 0 to 60 times and like my review of the tune. But the bottom line on the tune is it's awesome. I don't think it's something to worry about. This is the first vehicle I've ever actually done an aftermarket tune on. I was a little nervous about voiding the longer full warranty, but to be honest, it's so well put together, and it's done and approved by Ford in 49 states. It's not approved in California because they have different emission standards and whatever it is, but this is one of the first ones I've seen that they release when it's not available in California, just because they're comfortable with it and they want to get it out to us that have these vehicles and just love doing stuff to it. So that's it. The Performance Tune does require premium fuel. So once you get the tune on it, you don't have the ability to go back and forth. If you keep your ProCal tuner in your truck and you're like driving across country and all you can get is 87, you could revert the tune back to stock and put that in. I don't keep my tuner in my truck. It's in my garage. I just, I keep 4 gallons of premium fuel on here and I keep it pretty full. I don't usually get below a quarter of a tank. So I'm not too worried about getting stranded. stranded and not being able to put the right fuel in it. So just something to know, you do have to put premium fuel in it. So let's go with the cons of this truck. I would say the first con is, well, not the first, I don't want to put these in order, but the things to know. I get about 14 miles to the gallon in this thing. I didn't buy a Ranger Raptor to get good mileage, but 14 is pretty bad. My dad just bought a brand new GMC Sierra, like the full-size truck with the 5.7 liter, not the big V8, but like the middle of the road V8, and he's getting like 22, and that thing is way more of a windbreak than this. It's bigger, it's wider. I don't think it's any higher, but it's pushing more wind out of the way, and somehow it gets 20, 22 miles to the gallon. This thing on the highway might get 19, 20 if you're going 75 miles an hour, at least in my case. I also have the roof rack or the bed rack on it, which doesn't help with a couple things. So a stock one with a tonneau cover might get a little bit better, but do not buy this thinking you're going to get good mileage. I don't think anybody who buys a Raptor has that in their mindset, but just know 14 miles to the gallon, you're going to be filling up a lot. And that's just all the different driving. That's averaging over 16,000 miles, going out on trails, sitting in some pickup lines. I don't let my truck idle for more than about 5 or 10 minutes, but in the cold, I always start it about 15 minutes before I leave. So there is some time in the mornings when it's warming up, and that all factors into the 14. So maybe 16 is a more realistic number, but again, not great for a mid-sized truck. So this is onto the next con about this thing, and they fixed this since I got my truck, but there's a load box reinforcement bracket that's required on any truck that was built before, I think, October of 2024, that if you put something like this, like a bed rack on the back of your truck, there's not enough strength in the load box itself, where a bunch of weight up here when you're out off-roading could actually bend the bed of the truck and it'll buckle over to the side. So I went in, I bought it, I put them in myself. Anything after an October build, or maybe September, October, no, it'd be anything after October, they already have those in, or they rebuilt the bed. I don't know, but somehow it's no longer an issue on the newer trucks. But I did it myself. I did a video on that as well. It was not super hard, and for what they were going to charge me for labor, I did it by myself. Not a big issue, but not something you should have to do when you buy a truck like this. These are made to go out and do stuff off-road, and to think that if you want to put a rack on here, you got to buy these extra things because the bed could buckle is just insane to me. But they have fixed it. If you do buy a used one that was built before October, just ask whoever you're buying it from, hey, did you put the load box reinforcements on? I hear they're hard to come by now. Ford isn't even, they're like backward and everything, but there are some aftermarket brands that make them as well. So just be aware of that. Let's see. The undercarriage protection. So you've got the big bash plate in the front. You've got a skid plate protecting your engine oil pan and the front transfer case and your front differential. You have no protection for the transmission pan, which is plastic. Not the end of the world. It handles the heat just fine. When you mold plastic, you can put more baffles in it. So when you are going all over the place, all the engine fluids or transmission fluids aren't going to one side. They're stuck in the baffles. So, I mean, there are some pros to it. It's lighter, it doesn't corrode, but being old school, I like the idea of a metal oil pan and a metal transmission pan just because it's what I'm used to. Engineers do things for a reason. I know there are a lot of vehicles out there that are putting plastic oil pans and transmission pans on their vehicles now, and you don't hear about it in the news all the time. It's just something that's just hard to accept because you just assume plastic is not going to be as good as metal. But anyway, there is also no protection for the gas tank or the rear differential. There are little covers, little protection on the rear suspension. So overall, I just wish there was a little bit more going back behind the transfer case. It'd be cool to have something protecting the drive shaft and the transmission all the way back. And you can buy kits, but last I looked, it was like a little over $1,200 for a full kit, and it adds some weight. So I probably will get something eventually. I don't know that I need a gas tank protector, but you know, if I'm going to get it, I might as well get everything. It'll probably add another 150 pounds, but I'm not worried about weight. I carry all this crap. I carry all my stuff in the bed of my truck, all my recovery gear, my camping gear, some water. Really just all my stuff just stays in my truck. So I have like 400 or 500 pounds that I'm taking with me everywhere anyway. Take that into account. That's another reason my gas mileage might kind of suck, is because I'm always hauling an extra 400 pounds worth of stuff. the stereo in this truck. If you're not an audiophile, if you didn't grow up in the 90s putting car stereos in your vehicles and you're happy with stock stereos, this one is pretty good. But for me, I always built my own stereos or had like Harman Kardon in a BMW or something like that. The B&O system in this thing is not all that B&O, because when I took all the speakers out, they still said Ford Motor Company on them. So it's not like you're getting B&O speakers in here. They just designed it and I guess tuned it. It has two different amplifiers. The rear amplifier does the stock subwoofer, the rear doors, the front door woofers, and then you have the front amplifier that does the front tweeters and the center channel. I went ahead and upgraded all of that stuff, but we'll go over that in a minute. Anyway, the stock subwoofer it's smaller than the door speakers. It's tiny. It's like a, I don't know, like a 5-inch speaker inside of a pretty decent sized sealed enclosure, but it's very underwhelming. I did a whole other video on that as well. I've upgraded everything, so you can go back into my channel and see the other things I did there. What's next? Oh, another part of the stereo is the sync between your phone and the Apple CarPlay. And I don't think this is specific to the Ford Ranger or Ford in general, because I've had a lot of other people tell me they've had the same issue in their vehicles where your phone syncs up, but the audio is not going through. Like, you can control your phone from your car screen. You can control your car screen from your phone. So it's communicating, it's a live connection, but audio is not going through. And that got really frustrating for me. So I ended up getting a, like one of those little boxes that you plug in to the CarPlay, and then you can play YouTube and Netflix and all that stuff. And since I put that in there, it takes a little bit longer to connect, but I have never had the issue with the audio syncing. And then some other people said when they got their car updated, when they took it in for service, they haven't had the issue since then as well. So maybe that's a thing of the past, but I would say maybe 20% of the time. So like at least once a day when I drove my car to and from work and took my kids to school, once a day I'd have that issue where I had to disconnect and reconnect my phone to get the audio to go through. So not the end of the world. You get really good at disconnecting and reconnecting, but it'd be cool if you didn't have to do that at all. There are no ventilated or cooled seats, and then the rear seats don't have heaters in them. My Ford Explorer had cooled seats. My wife's Lincoln Aviator has cooled seats in the front and the back. My Explorer had heated seats in the back. My BMW had heated seats in the back. So it's not that odd to have heated seats front and back. And I'm guessing they didn't have ventilated seats in this because the seats in here are specific to the Raptor and you got to have holes in it and stuff like that. They didn't do that. So it would have been nice. The other part of that is there's no ventilation for the back seats for air conditioning. So there are no vents in the console. Other Ford Rangers around the world do have that. Australia has it, South America or South Africa has it. But we didn't get that in the United States. The AC works so darn well, though, that you can point the middle vents back to the back and they can feel it. They're not very far behind you. This isn't an F-150 that's another 2 feet back. So it's still okay. There are heater ducts in the back, but I have yet to successfully control it to where I can have it blowing cold air and then force it down through the footwells in the back. Cold air just comes out through the top vents. So it is what it is. Would have been nice. It gets pretty hot here in Virginia, so just note that there is no ventilation in the back seats. And then the back seat, this is my last kind of con or gripe about it, is the back seat is not a split back seat. So to bring the back down or the seat up, the entire thing has to be cleared off. It's not a 60-40 or a 50-50 split. So you couldn't have like a car seat in on one seat and pull the other side up to get to the storage down there. The storage is not all that great, but it would be nice to be able to get your straps or your towels or whatever you keep down there without having the entire seat come up. So my Gladiator had a split seat. My Chevy S10 from 1994 had a split seat. My Tacomas all had a split seat. So it's just interesting that they didn't do that in here. And I don't know if that's across all Ford Rangers or just the Ranger Raptor, but it is kind of a bummer. And then the last thing is there's no coating. I said the last one was the last thing, and I don't even have this written down, but I do want to mention it. There's no coating on the drive shafts. So in the United States or other parts of the world have coated drive shafts. They're painted black, they're nice and clean, they don't rust. I got this, and like the third day I had it, I got under it, and the drive shafts and the U-joints were all completely rusted. They are big old cast iron tubes, so it's going to happen. And honestly, that rust would take a really, really long time to work its way through and become an issue. but it drove me crazy that I bought a brand new truck and it was already rusty. So I ended up sanding the rust down and spray painting it with Rust-Oleum and some other protectant. But that was just for me. I just couldn't take the fact that my brand new truck was rusty. Not necessary. And then I've had other people say, oh, if you paint it, then you're going to void your warranty, which is insane to me, but maybe they would try to do that. I wasn't too worried about it. So those are the cons, and none of them are deal breakers. I still love this truck. There's still not one that I would want instead of it. Those are just things to know when you get this truck. I mean, no, it's not an F-150. It's not huge in the back, but I've sat in the back when my kids are out at horses. I've sat in the back seat for an hour just working on my computer, and it was not uncomfortable. I wouldn't want to go on a long road trip with 5 adults in this thing, but I would go out to dinner with, maybe 4 adults sitting in the back if I had to, that was 30 minutes away. So just note, it is a mid-sized truck. It probably has similar, maybe a little more room than a Tacoma. I haven't sat in a ZR2. I've sat in the older S10s and Sonomas, but either way, I mean, for a mid-sized truck, it is what it is. It's comfortable back there, but I wouldn't want to sit back there for a cross-country trip. So the upgrades I've done to this truck. One of the first things I did was put some lights on. I put these ditch lights. I bought the mounts from Australia, and then I put an off-road light up in the front behind the grill. And I had to do some modifications to do that. I also put the amber marker lights up there, which it would have been cool if they did that stock. It's on all the other Raptors, and I know this truck is not wide enough to require it by law, but it's kind of a Raptor look, so it would have been cool to have that. Some people say it's stupid to have it. You don't need it. I don't need a lot of this stuff, but I think it looks cool. So that's why I did it. The auxiliary switches are great. It made it really easy to wire all this stuff up, and they're already in there. You've got 4 up front. Actually, maybe it's 3 up front. No, there's 4. 4 auxiliary switches up front, 1 5 amp, a couple of 10 or 15s, and then you've got 2 in the back near the tailgate. So you've got some wires ready with your switches up there that you can hook up all sorts of cool stuff. So stereo, I mentioned it a little bit before. I went ahead and upgraded all of the speakers. I put a hideaway sub. I changed out the door speakers front and back, changed out the tweeters up here, put an inline amplifier. So I've got a powered amplifier with a 10-inch subwoofer, or an 8-inch subwoofer. It's just a kicker hideaway, fits perfectly. I did a video on that already. Did a video on the speakers. I also put sound deadener in the doors and up on the roof and the headliner, and that made a huge difference. Did some videos on that as well, and I show like the difference in sound. So I would say if you're happy with the stereo components, you will still benefit greatly by putting sound deadener in the doors, and if you want to take it on, pull the headliner down and do the roof as well. Those were one of the first things I did, and it made a huge difference in just how quiet it was inside the truck. But then I went ahead and added stuff like this that adds wind noise, so kind of a double-edged sword. You can do certain things and some of them counteract other ones. Let's see. I mentioned that I did the load box reinforcements. That's not one of the things that I think is a cool upgrade, but that's definitely one of the things that you should absolutely do before you go and like upgrade your wheels or put lights on it or something like that. If you're gonna put stuff on the back, make sure you do the load box reinforcements if your truck was built before October of 24. Auto start stop eliminator. So when you buy this truck, and it's an EPA requirement thing for all these cars nowadays to have auto start stop eliminators, you can turn it off with a push of a button. You can program it into your R button on the steering wheel where you set all your drive modes. You can set it to like your sport exhaust, your sport drive modes, and have the auto start stop eliminator engaged so it doesn't do that. You get in your car, you press the R button twice, and all those settings take effect. But when I'm just going to the grocery store, taking my kids to school, I'm not going to go into my R mode where it's in sport mode, for auto, all this different stuff. And it drives me crazy when I get to the stop sign at the end of my road and the truck shuts off. So I put in the auto start stop eliminator from 4D Tech. That's the one I got. It's worked great. At no point, I put that in within like the first 2 weeks of having this truck, and I haven't thought about it since then. It's just so nice. Maybe I would get a little bit better gas mileage if I had that in still like active to where it would shut down every time I stop. But I hate being at a red light, having the engine shut down, and then I let my foot off the gas or off the brake, takes that split second to start back up, and then it's harder on the battery, it's harder on the starter, all these little things. And they say the battery is made for that, the starter's made for that. Maybe so, but when I go drive somewhere, I just want to start the car once and turn it off when I get there. I don't want it to start and stop 50 times when I'm stopping in traffic, stopping at every red light. So Again, personal preference, but if you're like me and you like these cars and you little things like that drive you crazy, there is a solution for it. It was like $100, super easy to install. You just plug it in line. If you don't want it anymore, you can just unplug it. It doesn't flash anything to the ECU. It doesn't do anything permanent to the vehicle. You can take it out. And it's no different than just pushing the button every time. So if you did install it and they said, oh, your cam phasers are because you put the auto start stop eliminator, that's absolute BS. So anyway, just my thoughts on that. Okay, so my battery died. I was out here talking to myself for the last 10 minutes. I charged it, I'm back. So next upgrade that I did that I'm really happy about is the tonneau cover and the bed rack. So I use this a lot. I see a lot of people that put these things on their trucks, and even if they never use them, I think they look cool. But I actually use mine a fair amount. I have a rooftop tent that I put on there. I've got a couple gallons of fuel, and it's for multiple purposes. I ran out of fuel when I was in high school. It was embarrassing. Somebody helped me out. So if I can help somebody else out, I'm going to do that. I also have it because if I'm driving and I can't find a gas station when I'm low on gas that has premium, and since I have the Tune, I need premium fuel, I've got 5 extra gallons of premium fuel I can put in there. Take me another 80, maybe 90 miles if I drive really slow. Also got my hammock stuff. I've also got my shower up there. So I use all this stuff all the time. A note, the tonneau cover for me is more for security of the stuff in my bed. It does not keep everything dry. So I keep everything in my bed in watertight tubs, just not watertight, you couldn't throw them in a pool, but they keep water that's dripping down from getting all over the stuff. And I keep all my camping gear, all my recovery gear, my, inflate and deflate the tires, some straps, things like that. I keep that in my truck all the time. So I've got a couple 100 pounds of extra crap in there all the time. And that probably also affects my fuel mileage, which we talked about a little bit earlier. But anyway, that's another upgrade that I did that I really like. I talked about the lights that I've put on here. So I did, one I didn't talk about, I talked about the marker lights, these ditch lights, the front. I also did the fog lights. I went through a company in Australia, Signature Lux, and I helped them build the brackets for it. So they hooked me up with some cool stuff from them. But I did the white lights, and they're so darn bright. I get people flashing their headlights at me saying I got my high beams on, when in fact it's just the fog lights. So I think I would have gone, and I might still switch it out to the amber color in the future, just so it's obvious, and it might not be quite as bright or blinding other people. And then I might need to aim them down a little more. I thought I did a good job. They're below the height of the headlights, but these are active headlights. So when you're going up and down over rises, the headlights are raising and lowering, and also when you turn, they're turning left and right. So fog lights don't do that. Headlights do actively move around, and when you pull up to like a stop sign or a stoplight, the car in front of you, you'll notice your headlights will lower to the level of their brake lights, which is kind of cool. So you're not blinding them, hitting their side view mirrors or rear view mirror. But anyway, I did all those lights, and I really like them. It's pretty nice to have all the auxiliary switches. So you've got 4 switches that send wires up to the front, and then 2 to the back. You don't have to do anything to go through the firewall. They're already there. The relays are already set up. And you've got a 5 amp and then a couple of 10 or 15 amps and a 20 amp front and back all around. You can find it in your owner's manual, but it is really convenient to have those 6 switches. I'm using 4 of them right now, and I've got 2 more for whenever I want to put like a compressor or a winch or something like that on here. The Signature Lux media box, I talked about that a little bit when I was talking about the sync issues. So I've got that in there. We can watch YouTube, we can watch Netflix when we're waiting in the drop-off line at school. Or if I'm just like waiting for my kids at volleyball and it's cold outside and I'm sitting in my truck, I can watch whatever I want to watch instead of just watching on my phone. And then it also eliminates that, that audio syncing issue that I was having with the Sync 4 in my truck. Last thing I did, not the last thing I did, but one of the last things I want to talk about is the dash cam. And this isn't specific to a Ford Ranger or Ford Ranger Raptor. This is any vehicle. Dash cams are great to have. I did mine wired in through the fuses. It's got steady power, it's got auxiliary power, and it's got a low battery kill switch kind of thing. So when it gets down below 11.7 volts, it'll shut off, and then but it will record up until that point with motion sensors and all that stuff. And then if I get in an accident now, I have a way to show what happened. And also if I'm just out on a trail and I see something cool or I do something cool and I want to show the video, I just have it there. I don't have to set up my GoPros or anything like that. So dash cam is always a good idea. When I first put it in, I had it set up to a cigarette lighter, but then I went and actually wired it all in. I hid all the wires front and back, so I've got the rear view as well, and everything's hidden up in the headliner or all up in the trim and everything like that. So not super hard to do, but you definitely better give yourself a little bit of time. So that's it for the review. I mean, I really love this truck. I talked about the things I like about it. I talked about some of the things that I wish were different that Ford has already fixed a little bit where it comes to like the load box reinforcements, but there's still little things that they could have done better. But that's with every vehicle. None of those are showstoppers. None of them make me have any sort of feeling of buyer's remorse. I still love this truck, love everything about it. It's awesome. And then the upgrades I did to kind of overcome some of the things I didn't like about it. So really that's it. It's a reliable truck. I've had a great time with it. I've done a lot of cool stuff with it. Still looking for the upgrades I want to do to it. So I don't remember what I said before the battery died, but I do remember talking about the tires a little bit. I like these tires. Right now, I have no issues with them. There's no cupping or anything weird. I've got 16,000 miles on them. I think I'll probably get 35-ish thousand miles out of them, and then I will replace them with another set of those same tires, the KO3s. That's it, and I'm gonna edit this if I have to, but if you put bigger tires on your truck and you have the tune, you will avoid the drivetrain warranty because you're putting a lot more stress on the differentials, the transfer case, and the transmission when you're trying to put that much power to a bigger wheel. The torque is not gonna be handled through all the gears the same way. All right, so there we go. To sum it up, this is an awesome truck. I've had it for a year, 16,000 miles, daily driver. I use it all the time for everything I do. I use it to haul crap. I'll take the entire rack off and fill it with mulch. I'll go camping in it. I'll take it off-roading. It's great. Everything about it. I love it. It's not, I have not once thought, what am I going to get next? Other than if they come out with the Ford Ranger Raptor R. So hopefully this is helpful to anybody who's on the fence about this truck. I'm not a Ford loyalist. I love the the ZR2. I really liked the Tacoma TRD Pro, but there were just little things about it that I wasn't too sure about. The TRD Pro, that new hybrid system, it's the first time they're doing it in the Tacoma, so I wanted to wait a little bit on that. The ZR2, I just really like the 6-cylinder in this. I think the ZR2 looks great. I think it has a lot more undercarriage protection than this, but the Ranger Raptor was where it was at for me. So that's it. Cheers, everybody. Have a great day.
It's over!